The declaration of emergency says there'll be no demonstrations, no strikes, and it strictly limits the Soviet media. Well, it has been successful to a certain degree in limiting the Soviet media. Only 9 newspapers, all relatively supportive of the new committee, will be on the streets today. In fact, not even 9. Izvestia has decided not to come out at all. Its publishing staff saying that it would not appear today. As far as the other decrees, there are people on the streets, traffic is moving, demonstrations are scheduled. They were held in quite large numbers yesterday, and there are reports of strike action around the country, at least around the Russian Federation, in response to Mr. Yeltsin. So obviously these decrees don't have very much effect, at least not yet.
Jim, thank you very much. Standing by live in Washington, he has been working hard all day, beginning this morning in Kennebunkport, Maine, ABC's White House correspondent, Britt Hume. Britt, what has the president done since his press conference this morning and then the flight back to Washington?
Well, Ted, it's kind of interesting. He had a very large meeting here at the White House this afternoon with the senior available representatives of all the key agencies. The White House was quick to point out that this was not a National Security Council meeting, that this is not a military emergency that would require that. But these were the senior policy advisors who were available to him, some of them being on vacation or otherwise out of town. And out of that came late this afternoon this policy declaration, which runs a page plus a couple of paragraphs, and where the president 24 hours ago was relying on wire service reports to figure out what was going on in the Soviet Union. He now tonight has issued what amounts to the beginnings of a new policy to deal with the new realities. And there are some interesting elements to it. For example, it declares that we will avoid, it says, in every possible way actions that would lend legitimacy or support to this coup effort. One wonders, for example, how the administration might square the hurried-up swearing in of Bob Strauss, the new ambassador to the Soviet Union, tomorrow, and their decision to get him over there so quickly. If that doesn't lend legitimacy to the government, I don't know what does. We'll certainly want to ask about that.
All right, and who's been coming back? I gather Dick Cheney is back in town, Jim Baker is back in town, and Jim Baker, in fact, is back in town only to leave again tomorrow, right?
That is correct, Ted, and Cheney got here as well this evening. I rather imagine that the president will, if he hasn't already talked to them this evening, will be talking to them tomorrow. However, he does plan, and is scheduled to go back to Kennebunkport tomorrow afternoon. And I might add, by the way, that I think that part of what he was doing in coming down, holding this meeting and issuing this declaration was to assure that the bureaucracy, the whole government, was all on the same page and all playing to the music he wants played in this crisis.
Very quickly, Brett, what is the mission of the Secretary of State when he flies to Brussels tomorrow?
Well, I think that there will be the discussions with the NATO allies, although there has been, as I suggested earlier, Ted, a major effort to downplay any potential military confrontation. But the underlying reality, Ted, as you well know, is that this would not be a political crisis if it were not a potential military crisis. That the reason why we care so much about the Soviet Union in its reduced circumstances is that the Soviet Union still, as Colin Powell memorably put it, the only nation on earth capable of destroying much of the United States in 30 minutes.
Britt Hume, thank you very much. It was morning in the Soviet Union, just before midnight here on the East Coast when the news broke last night. Americans were shocked, so were many in the Soviet Union, although for some, that shock quickly turned into anger. Nightline's Jackie Judd now takes a look at the coup.
And now, newsflash. Vice President of the USSR, Gennady Yanayev, took office from Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev because Gorbachev is unable to perform his presidential duties for health reasons.
Radio Moscow's stunning announcement of Mikhail Gorbachev's overthrow. It was soon followed by a terse one-line report from Boris Yeltsin's office faxed to the West. It is a military coup, it read. Tanks are everywhere.
This is Sheila Cast in Moscow. What you are seeing are tanks, not just armored personnel carriers, but tanks rolling along Kuchizovsky Prospect in the direction of the Kremlin.
An anchorman for Soviet television felt the grip of the new government immediately. Yuri Petrov was roused from bed in the middle of the night and told to go to the studio to read an important announcement.
It was a very complicated, feeling inside me. You see, from one hand, I'm an announcer, that's why I had to do this work, you see. But deep inside my soul, deep inside my, well, heart, it was a sadness.
And in Washington, well before dawn, there was scrambling. Correspondent David Enzor.
People in the Bush administration and here at the State Department don't like surprises, and it's fairly clear that they were caught by surprise by this coup attempt.
In Moscow, opponents mobilized quickly. The Soviet Union's most popular and most consummate politician, reformer Yeltsin, threw down the gauntlet. He called the hardliners criminals and urged soldiers to disobey orders. Most significantly, the president of the Russian Republic declared that he would control all government institutions on Russian soil. On the streets of the Soviet capital, there was dissent as well. Protesters erected barricades, and much as they did in China's Tiananmen Square, demonstrators used their bodies to try to stop the Soviet soldiers from moving in. As the morning wore on in the United States, the Bush administration began to be heard from. Before leaving his main vacation home for a hurried trip to Washington, Mr. Bush could only hold out the hope that public pressure would prevail.
I think it's also important to know that coups can fail. They can take over at first, and then they run up against the will of the people.
At a Moscow news conference, Gennady Yanayev was introduced as the acting president of the Soviet Union. Yanayev claimed Gorbachev was moved aside because he's ill. And although no one seems to be taking it seriously, he left open the possibility that Gorbachev would one day return to power. But ominously, Yanayev blamed Gorbachev's perestroika for a myriad of problems facing the Soviet Union.
Under the circumstances, we have no other alternative but to take resolute action in order to stop the country from sliding down to a disaster.
Yanayev was a rather anonymous politician, performing the usual tasks of a vice president, like greeting Mr. Bush at the Moscow airport for the recent superpower summit. His sudden ascension raises questions about whether he's simply a frontman.
He certainly is not the mastermind of this coup. He is a figurehead, not for the military or any of these specific agencies. Right now, he's a figurehead for the other 7 who have pulled off this coup d'etat.
Why did this happen now? Hardliners may have wanted to block a momentous event that was to take place in the Soviet Union on Tuesday. Leaders of several republics or states were to finalize a treaty with the central government that would give them much more power and economic independence at the expense of the Kremlin. Still, today's events came as a shock. ABC's Peter Jennings interviewed Gorbachev last month. We asked Peter if the deposed leader saw this day approaching.
Well, we heard a lot of rumors from a lot of people who'd worked with Mr. Gorbachev and who were still working with Mr. Gorbachev that this was in the works. We heard it particularly from people who'd left him to go with the so-called reform democratic movement. But from him, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
In fact, there probably were clues. Last December, when Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze resigned, he warned of an approaching dictatorship. Only last week, another Gorbachev ally, Alexander Yakovlev, resigned from the Communist Party, and he warned that Stalinists were preparing a coup. In Washington, on Capitol Hill, finger-pointing already has begun. After an intelligence briefing, one congressman, a Democrat, said the administration was so attached to Gorbachev, it was blinded to reality.
I, for the life of me, cannot understand why the president would be shocked by this action. It was clear that Gorbachev did not have the support on either end of the political spectrum. He had no base, and that a coup was a very real possibility.
At day's end, President Bush issued a statement from the White House. He refused to recognize the coup leaders, called for Gorbachev's return, and said there would be no support for economic aid to the USSR if the situation continues. And in Moscow at day's end, a potential confrontation was brewing. 9 tanks manned by Yeltsin loyalists had positioned themselves outside the so-called Russian White House in clear defiance of orders. A Western advisor talked to a top Yeltsin aide late today.
This is going to be the most terrible night for you because you've got to, obviously, I hope you get enough people around that building to prevent them from trying to charge it or do something awful.
As for Mikhail Gorbachev, ABC News has been told that Gorbachev has left the Crimea, where he reportedly was under house arrest, and was flying to an undetermined location, but he's not been seen or heard from. In one of those reports, Facts from Moscow to the West, there was this notation: Boris Yeltsin tried to contact Gorby and failed. This is Jackie Judd for Nightline.
When we come back, we'll talk with the outgoing U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union in his first interview since leaving the post, and with a former aide to Mikhail Gorbachev. We'll also have an exclusive look at members of the Soviet Communist Party's old guard.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by John Hancock.
When you were 21,
yeah,
we drank a toast to it.
Yeah.
We did do that. When you were 30,
yeah,
you could boast of it.
Yeah.
Now you're 40. Look at there. See? So make the most of it. Well, isn't that clever?
Introducing a car so intelligently engineered, its elegance and grace can be measured along these lines or graded on a curve. The 1992 Oldsmobile 88 Royale, beautifully redefined and nimble enough to prove that a straight line isn't always the best way to get from point A to point B. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
Purity Sweet Acidophilus, a delicious enriched milk that has a lot going for it, and a lot going for your whole family as well. They're the acidophilus cultures to help your digestion, important vitamins like A and D, calcium, and that great purity taste, guaranteed in every delicious glass. Purity Sweet Acidophilus, all this with less than half the fat of regular milk, any way you slice it.
The following commercial is of no interest to you. That's no payment, no interest till 92. Furniture Center's 0% event is happening now. So when you buy this or this, you pay this till 92. Or buy this or this and pay this. Our 0% interest event includes every item in our showrooms, even sale merchandise. So don't wait till next year. Buy now and make no payments plus no interest till 92 during Furniture Center's 0% event. It's a great offer, so hurry.
History is being written now in Russia. Gorbachev out, a state of emergency in effect. Stay with the experience of ABC News as the crisis in Moscow unfolds.
Joining us now from our Huntsville, Alabama affiliate, WAAY, is Jack Matlock, who just left Moscow last week after a 4-year tour as the U.S. ambassador. Tonight he is speaking for himself and not for the administration. And from our Atlanta bureau, Senator Sam Nunn, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Ambassador Matlock, in that wonderful new freedom that you have, speaking only for yourself and not for the administration, can you figure out why they are in such a rush to get Bob Strauss nominated and send him over there when at the same time they're trying not to legitimize this new government?
Well, I think that's a question they'll have to deal with. I'm not now in the position to speak for the administration.
No, that's why I'm asking you, just to give a little analysis as Jack Matlock. What do you think of the idea of sending him over right away?
Well, you know, I think more about what's happening in the Soviet Union, and I believe that there the important thing to watch is what the reaction of the people are, because I think this coup is not necessarily a done deal, and I think we're already seeing some important reactions.
You evaded that question nicely. I won't embarrass you by asking it again, but tell me what you think is going to happen with regard to the Soviet military over there. And when I ask what is going to happen, do you think they have the capacity of firing on their own people?
I think it would be very dangerous for them to try to, and I think the coup leaders are risking a civil war if they press this to the hilt. Among other things, the army is divided, and they cannot assume that necessarily all the officers will go along with them. Second, we have to remember it's a conscript army, and conscripts are not a very effective instrument for dealing with civil unrest. You know, if push comes to shove, they might start shoving the officers rather than the people around. So I think that this group is running some very high risks, and I think that the outcome is not at all clear at the moment.
Senator Nunn, perhaps there's been a little bit of difficulty on the part of the administration over the past couple of years in defining what the new world order was, but whatever it was, is it still, given this change of events in the Soviet Union?
Well, of course, this changes it, Ted, considerably, and we hope, as the ambassador just observed, that this is not the final word on the coup. I hope that the people will not support the people who are now illegitimately trying to control the Soviet government. I hope that the military will not support their own leaders if they call for firing on the Russian and other people in the Soviet Union. So this one's not over, but certainly this changes everything in terms of relationship with the Soviet Union, and that relationship with the Soviet Union was the basis of the so-called New World Order.
How much freedom of action does the United States have to alter, to affect, to change events within the Soviet Union? What are some of the levers, Senator?
Well, there are a number of things I think we can do, but we shouldn't kid ourselves in thinking that what we do is going to determine the outcome. But I think we can have an effect on the margin, and I think it will be a close call over there. We can certainly suspend all economic aid and assistance, which the President has indicated he's going to do along that line.
There wasn't a whole lot of it going anyway.
Well, we've got the $1.5 billion grain sale that took place on credit. I think that we should suspend the last two parts of that. Only one part has gone forward so far, so there's $900 million left there. I think that we ought to demand cash for anything we sell them now, including grain, as long as these conditions exist. I think we ought to accelerate the radio reports that we and our allies put forth within the Soviet Union, because communication is going to be one of the things the coup leaders try to slam down. I think we ought to seriously question how, if he does present himself, Ambassador Strauss presents himself, because we're trying and should, I think, deny recognition to this government, but the first thing an ambassador does is to present his credentials. So that is a point that the administration needs to reflect on very carefully. All of these things, I think, can be done, but most of all, we need to tell the world and tell the Soviet leaders that they are illegitimate and that we will not deal with them until they return a constitutional legal principle to their governing.
Do you have as much trouble with the question that I put to Ambassador Matlock as he did? And let's face it, he is still working for the State Department right now, so I can understand it. But do you think it's a good idea to send Bob Strauss over there right now?
I think it's a very tricky proposition. There may be reasons the administration has not revealed as to why they need to have Ambassador Strauss there right now, but it presents a very awkward situation because he has to present himself to the government, he has to deal with the government, and the administration is now, as I understand it, with the President's after-dinner statement denying the legitimacy of that new government. So it's a very tricky proposition, and I think Ambassador Matlock, of course, is a real expert in diplomacy, and I'll defer to him on it if he wants to take another crack at it. By the way, he's one of our best representatives, and we should all be proud of the job he did.
I don't think he does, but if you do, Ambassador Matlock, feel free to jump in on that one. Let me just ask you, though, if I may, Mr. Ambassador, what do you make of the new President Yanayev's statement that possibly, if Gorbachev's health improves, he might come back? How do you interpret that?
Well, I think that's a sign of the weakness of this group. I don't take it very seriously as an intent. They wouldn't have tried the coup if that's what they intended. But at the same time, the fact that he feels that he needs to make that statement publicly, I think is significant. And I'm far from certain that this group is going to be able to carry through what is necessary to gain complete control. And if so, they're going to have to face the question of whether they want to plunge the country into chaos or whether they are willing to find steps back to constitutionality.
Gentlemen, if you'll both be good enough to stand by, we'll be coming back to you a little bit later in the broadcast, but immediately when we return, we'll have a unique profile of the hardline faction that led to Gorbachev's downfall. We'll also be joined by one of Gorbachev's former advisors on arms control and space.
Sir, I want you to stand right here for me, okay? Okay. Go ahead and get your hands out of your pockets. Go ahead and stand face me. Put your heels and toes together. All the way together. All the way together. Okay, you see my pen right here in front of your eyes? Yes. I want you to follow my pen, okay? With your eyes only. Okay, sir. Go ahead and turn around. You have anything in a gun? No. Go ahead and turn around. Give me your hands to the back. Okay, you're on the arrest for DWI, sir, okay? We're going to go downtown for intoxilizer test, okay?
It begins at dawn. They've come for you, and they want what you have. It's your bed. You're a Serta Perfect Sleeper, but it's the most comfortable spot in the house. It's why people are saying, I want my Serta.
Stouffer's and Stouffer's Lean Cuisine bring you over 40 items for about $2. At that price, you'll think you're back in the 70s. Delicious values from Stouffer's and Stouffer's Lean Cuisine. Delicious values from Stouffer's and Stouffer's Lean Cuisine.
Charming, successful, dynamic.
Steven?
Everyone who loved him
Nobody knew anything about Steven.
had a reason to kill him.
Could have been anybody.
I want names. Who are you protecting? Someone's lying.
Who? Defenseless. Rated R.
Starts Friday at a theater near you.
It's 91 closeout time, and that makes now your best time to take advantage of a Pontiac dealer. With so many new Pontiacs still in stock, he's offering his best values. Get his biggest factory cash back of the year, like $2,500 cash back on luxurious new full-size Bonnevils, and $2,000 cash back on sporty new Grand Prix. Take advantage of your Pontiac dealer now. He can't wait, so don't you wait. See the Pontiac people of Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky.
I don't ask why and I don't ask how. That's because I already know where. Right here.
For Ace Best Buys of the Week, nationally branded products, money-saving prices. Hang a child swing, make a newspaper holder, and more. It will surprise you what you can do with ACO Chain. 25% off our stock. Fluid Master SureFit decorative trim handles for the shower at a fashion touch. Many styles and finishes, one size fits all. 30% off our stock. These and other Best Buys of participating Ace hardware dealers.
Hey, Ace is the place for me.
The Gorbachev years come to an end. As crisis grips the Soviet Union, what next? Stay with the experience of Peter Jennings and watch ABC's World News Tonight tomorrow.
A coup in the Soviet Union, tanks in the streets of Moscow. How might it affect relations with the U.S.? Overnight developments of the Soviet coup here on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Those responsible for ousting Mikhail Gorbachev are frequently described as the old guard of the Communist Party. It's a group that is not open to reform, nor is it open to reporters. But Nightline has obtained some rare footage from an independent producer who spent months with the hardliners. Here's Nightline correspondent Jeff Greenfield.
For most Americans, today's coup in Moscow was a simple power grab by a small band of communist apparatchiks. But in fact, resentment at what Mikhail Gorbachev was trying to do has been building in some parts of Soviet society for years. It was heard, for example, loud and clear last February during a week-long Russian festival at a Leningrad sports stadium. Here, for example, is a member of the Communist Party's old guard talking about the collapse of the Soviet Empire and unrest in the Baltic republics.
The man who is responsible for what happened in the Baltic states, Romania, the GDR, what happened to the socialist world? And that is being passed off as a triumph of foreign policy? What other word should we use to describe short-sightedness and incompetence?
Another party insider angrily denounces criticism of the army, one of the power centers that helped unseat Gorbachev earlier today.
The army is the quintessence of the people, and we must not allow anyone to speak ill of our army.
And listen to Vasily Belov, a noted Russian writer, as he speaks scornfully of Gorbachev's plan to experiment with private property rights.
The sale of land, now what does that mean? Again, the same millionaires that have fat purses will come along and buy up the land. I will never agree to such a law. My own land, my own country, which has been devastated. Along comes a millionaire from the Caucasus or Leningrad, and he'll buy up the land where I was born. I don't want that.
Producer-director Natasha Lance spent a year in the Soviet Union gathering this footage.
They find capitalism very frightening. It creates inequalities. It creates unemployment. These people have earned a steady wage, albeit not a very high wage, but they've survived on a bare minimal level. And that's what you hear these people saying, that the reform which Gorbachev offers is a threat to the nation. It's a threat to the workers.
Or go back to last November, to a strategy session in Leningrad of an anti-reformist faction within the Russian Communist Party. This man is a veteran of World War II, what is called in Russia the Great Patriotic War. To him, Gorbachev represented a betrayal of his ideals.
He talked about the need for a popular referendum, about the private ownership of land. After that, I began to think I'm in the wrong party, or maybe the Secretary General is in the wrong party. I was embarrassed before my father, lying in bed, that I can do nothing to help communism.
That same month, a room full of veterans met in the Kirov Factory Museum, a museum that commemorates the history of the plant. For these veterans, the end of communism in Hungary, Poland, and the rest of Eastern Europe was a frightening portent of what could happen at home.
The Politburo doesn't know what's happening. What's going on now is a premeditated attempt to break apart the government.
And the move to change the name of Leningrad back to St. Petersburg stirred this woman to anger.
Lenin may be dead, but there must be a city called Leningrad.
They paid for what they called socialism. Today, at their age, they see that what they've spent their whole life doing is being torn apart.
For the first deputy secretary of the factory's Communist Party unit, the need to attack the advocates of democracy was clear.
We must remind ourselves of the tactics of Lenin, the tactics of the people. We didn't have any need to concern ourselves with this before. How we said it should be is how it was, but now we have opponents, and we need to figure out how to tactically fight against them.
The Communist Party will survive. It just has to cleanse itself of certain people.
For steelworker Viktor Ovchennikov, who works in the Kirov factory, the market economy that the reformers were advocating seemed more a trap than a promise.
We think the market, in the form that it's presented to us by Perestroika and by our government and Central Committee, is a lie to the people. Why should we follow the path you did? Why should we do this and make all the mistakes you made to get to where we want to be?
For this society to shift from an idea of collective ownership to private ownership is a huge leap. It's a huge psychological leap. So that's why there's a lot of conservative resentment to that. But I think that people will overcome that.
The strong appetite for freedom throughout so much of the communist world may have led Americans to ignore a fundamental truth. For many in the Soviet Union, their system is the only one they have known. Changing that system seemed to many less a promise of something better and more a frightening step into the unknown. Jeff Greenfield for Nightline in New York.
When we come back, we'll be joined by a former advisor to Mikhail Gorbachev and from Moscow by an expert on U.S.-Soviet relations.
Get on, excitement.
The all-new Pontiac Bonneville.
Feel the control.
Its anti-lock brakes proof-tested to be ready when needed. Its airbag deployed countless times, though it's hoped you'll never see it. Redesigned, re-engineered, and ready to ride. The all-new Pontiac Bonneville.
Get on the Pontiac. Get on excitement.
Have you ever seen someone when they come out of a salon? They're happy and they look great. That's because they feel beautiful. Think about it. Hairstyling is creating beauty. People looking their absolute best. Uncovering beauty and enhancing it, that's style. To get that, start with a professional hairstylist. Take their advice and use Paul Mitchell products.
Paul Mitchell products are guaranteed only when purchased in fine salons.
Channel 2 and Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken commend the hard-working men and women of Middle Tennessee in a special Labor Day salute.
Let's thank the people. People like you and me, working hard. You're the best that you can be in the heartland of America, Middle Tennessee. You're on our side, we never doubt that we can count on you. The unsung heroes, the working men, the women on the job. Together you have made us strong, one nation under God.
To the men and women of Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, thanks for your hard work and dedication for a job well done.
Hi, this is Chris Lennon. He'll be hosting this week on Into the Night.
On ABC.
Tune in later tonight and see what happens.
I love show business.
Joining us now in our Washington studio is Dr. Raul Sagdeyev, a member of the Soviet Congress of People's Deputies and a former advisor to Gorbachev on space policy and arms. And joining us live from Moscow, Andrei Kortunov, who analyzes U.S.-Soviet relations for the USA-Canada Institute in Moscow. Andrei, you and I spoke earlier this morning, and at the time I asked you what gave you the courage to come out and speak at a time when being critical of this new government might prove to be rather dangerous. And you said at that time that now was the time for liberals to make their voices heard. Are a great many others making their voices heard today?
Well, I think that people are taking sides. Some of them are hiding in their country houses outside of Moscow, but some of them are taking part in the construction of barricades. So I think it is a test for all of us, and we'll see what everybody can do about it.
How are you interpreting the fact, I must tell you, I'm surprised that we're still able to talk to you tonight. My own guess was that by tonight, these kinds of satellite broadcasts might be rather difficult. How long do you think this kind of communication, free communication between Moscow and Washington can continue?
You know, I think that the fact that we still have communication shows that the people who are taking the power in Moscow do not have political will. They cannot detain Yeltsin, they cannot cut off international communications, and I think that they are losing momentum. The time is playing against them, and probably they do not have a political leader who can take responsibility for some radical actions that could antagonize the population and terrify the people in Moscow.
Dr. Sagdeyev, just before the broadcast, you and I were chatting for a while, and you too seem to feel that this new leadership lacks a certain cohesiveness, a certain will, a certain clarity of purpose. Why?
I think they were in the shadow of Gorbachev too long, and the whole democratic development in the country were moving, you know, a kind of aside of them. They were a kind of a statist at the previous development, and suddenly they decided that the principal actor on the scene is doing something wrong. So they just entered without any actual experience, even without being able to think over, as Andrei Kortunov said, about all the implications.
Now, only a few months ago, the Soviet military was brought into Moscow, and in effect, they were faced down by a huge crowd. What was it, about 500,000 people who gathered back in March at Boris Yeltsin's urging?
Yeah, at least 500,000 people.
Yeah. What is happening now, though? I'm rather surprised that the crowds in Moscow are as sparse as they are. Andrei, do you want to give me a description as you were coming to the studio this morning, and I realize it's still very early in Moscow, Tuesday morning.
Well,
what does it look like in the streets?
It's pretty calm in Moscow right now, but the people are guarding the building of the Supreme Soviet of the Russian Federation, and I think that some activity is still going on. People are printing leaflets, they are building barricades in the vital points of the city. Still the traffic is blocked, especially the bridges are blocked by tanks, buses and trolley buses.
I don't think that there are any splashes of sporadic violence yet. But of course the situation can be provoked by some extremist action on each side. And if the violence breaks down, I think it will be very difficult to control it and very difficult to contain violence if it emerges.
Dr. Sagdeyev, let me put to you the question that I put to some of our previous guests on this broadcast tonight. If orders are given to Soviet troops to fire on Soviet citizens, do you think they will?
I doubt they would be able to do it. I think they are the people, the guys who are coming from the same cities. They are children of the people who are, and brothers of those who are gathering on the streets. I think this is a principal miscalculation of comrades or Misters Yanayev, Baklanov and Pavlov.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a break. In a moment, when we come back, we'll be joined again by Ambassador Jack Matlock and by one of Lithuania's top diplomats in the United States.
Did you know that on March 10th of 1876, on the 3rd floor of this building in Boston, Alexander Graham Bell spilled some acid on his trousers. Needing help, he quickly tried his latest invention. In another room, his assistant wrote in his journal the next words he heard, feeling they may have some historical importance.
Mr. Watson, come here. I want you.
And a small business was born. Today at AT&T, we understand the kind of entrepreneurial spirit you need to run a small business. But it takes more than an idea and a dream. So we offer you almost 5,000 small business specialists in service centers all over the country to help with your long-distance needs and help you grow. At AT&T, almost half our business comes from small business. When you succeed, we succeed.
Free breakage guarantee. But you never know. Only Pearl will repair or replace your broken glasses free for 1 full year, no matter how they break. Have you got your pearls on?
How to give your family the moistest cake ever. You could take a cake baked with an ordinary mix and dunk it. Or you could bake your family an extraordinary cake with Duncan Hines Moist Deluxe Mix. And dazzle even the experts with the moistest cake ever. It's lavishly moist. Incredibly moist. Moister than any leading brand. In fact, this Duncan Hines Moist Deluxe cake is so moist, you can save the milk for their cereal.
How to bake your moist, delicious best.
Duncan Hines.
First, toothpaste came in tubes, then in unsqueezable pumps. Now, there's Neat Squeeze from Crest. Squeezes easily like a tube with the control of a pump and a pullback feature that makes brushing a lot less messy and a lot more fun. The new Neat Squeeze from Crest.
Joining us once again from Huntsville, Alabama, the outgoing U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, Jack Matlock. And here in our Washington studios is Stasys Lozoraitis, Lithuania's charge d'affaires in Washington. Ambassador Lozoraitis, I know you have been in touch by phone with President Landsbergis in the capital of Lithuania. And while our attention has been focused for most of this day on what's happening in and around Moscow, perhaps it would be helpful for you to bring us up to date on what's happening in Lithuania right now.
The situation is very tense, very sad. We have expected, of course, something of the sort. It is not a surprise to us. We've been attacked by the Soviet paratroopers many times in 1990, and unfortunately the West reacted in a very mild way. That's why probably These things continue to happen and happen today. In Lithuania, we have quite a lot of troops. I hear that a column of about 100 tanks is approaching the capital city of Vilnius from Belarus. We don't know what the plans are of these armored vehicles. And, of course, the television stations, the radio stations have been occupied by the Black Berets.
And in terms of communication with the outside world, how easy is it for them to get information out and for you to get information into them?
That's very difficult, but it is possible right now. We didn't have any communications during the day, but after 6 o'clock p.m. Washington time, I think that the telephone communications are functioning.
Do you think that the attention of the new government will be focused to a greater degree on the Baltic states, in some measure because they are a little bit out of sight? It's not quite as easy for Western journalists, for example, to know what is going on in Lithuania as it is what is going on in Moscow.
I think that they will be very cruel with the Baltic states. I expect new attacks against the population because it's an emotional matter for them. This is a group of people with a 19th century mentality. They don't understand that we are approaching the 21st century, and they use paratroopers with the hope of solving social, economic, political problems. And they don't understand, of course, that they will never be able to produce bread and well-being with these paratroopers. So I'm afraid that whatever the exit of the whole adventure in Moscow, the Baltic states will be the victims, at least for a few weeks.
Ambassador Matlock, let me draw your attention back to Jeff Greenfield's piece of a few moments ago, in which we heard some of the voices of Soviet conservatives, people who quite clearly were unhappy with Gorbachev, were unhappy with the diminution of power of the Communist Party. How large a segment of the population do those voices represent?
It's not a very large segment, actually. You know, in Russia, where there are probably greater numbers proportionally than in the other republics, they went all out to support to defeat Yeltsin. And their candidate, the former Prime Minister Ryzhkov, got less than 20% of the vote. Yeltsin got 67%. Now, there were a few other candidates that represented even more extreme conservatives, and they did very poorly. So these people have no chance at all at the ballot box.
So where really does the Soviet people stand today? On the one hand, we know that Gorbachev was becoming increasingly unpopular. I think his approval rating was down to about 6% in the Soviet Union only a few weeks ago. He's not very popular. You're telling me the conservatives don't have a great deal of power. Where do most people stand?
Well, the country is very divided in many respects, but I would warn you on the popularity ratings. One thing, polling is a very new instrument there, and second, in politics, you have to say compared to what? And I don't think in that respect that Gorbachev was nearly as unpopular as some of the polls would show. In fact, there was no other sort of candidate of an all-union significance who really could challenge him effectively. So this group is not depending upon the ballot box. They're going to try to deny people the right of the ballot box. Now, whether they can get by with it, of course, is the big question.
How attentive do you think they're going to be to the warnings that have been coming out of the White House today? I don't mean they, the Soviet people. How attentive do you think this new leadership is going to be?
Well, I think they have to take it seriously, because one thing they don't have is a plan to put the economy back in order. And even if they are able to establish a certain amount of political control over the next few weeks, that economy is going to go into a further tailspin. And where are they going to be in the fall? Where are they going to be in the winter? I think that what they have done does not make the farmers there any more willing to sell their produce than they have been before, and procurement of foreign products was one of the big problems. They can't really, I believe, send troops in and simply start shooting peasants the way Stalin did. I think they're going to face a real dilemma. And on the whole Union Treaty, this was really a last effort, I believe, to find a consensual basis for preserving a major part of the Union. It seems to me that they have completely destroyed that by, in effect, saying the Union Treaty is not good enough. I cannot imagine, for example, Ukraine or Russia voluntarily or Kazakhstan joining the Union under the current conditions. So their whole proposition is based upon using force. But, as I said, if they attempt to use force, if they push it too far, they risk civil war.
We're going to take a break. We'll continue our discussion in just a moment.
When the Cleavers would allow me to come into their home, I'd pass on all kinds of interesting facts.
Wally, you know that there are some places on the freeway where you're allowed to go 65 miles an hour.
They would have loved the Toyota Camry V6 with 24 valves and 156 horsepower. Camry's the perfect car for people who like power. But Ward used to drive like a snail.
Oh, you can get a ticket for that, too. Going too slow and blocking traffic.
Now, Glade Country Pottery air fresheners have fresh, new designs.
Put out the pottery, put it here, put it there.
Handmade pottery, now in decorative designs.
Put it everywhere, put out the pottery, put the fresh country air anywhere.
The porous clay releases the light, fresh scent for 30 days.
Just put out the pottery, put the fresh country air everywhere.
Put out the pottery in new decorative designs.
When I got a pounding headache, I used to take extra strength Tylenol, but it didn't always get rid of all my tough pain, and Tylenol gel caps didn't work any better. So I switched from Tylenol acetaminophen to Advil, and found that for my really tough headaches, 2 Advil work better than 2 extra strength Tylenol tablets, better than extra strength Tylenol caplets, better than Tylenol gel caps. For my tough headaches, Advil just works better. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
There's a certain kind of flavor you can only find down south with a down-home recipe, old-fashioned quality. Southern music to your mouth. Ryan, it's more than good food. It's the flavor of the South. Ryan, it's more than good food. It's the flavor of the South. Flavor of the South.
According to a recent national survey, 1 out of 3 Japanese car owners plans to make their next car American. Quote, they hear about the recent gains in American quality, like Buick. One example, Buick Park Avenue. Motor Trend called Park Avenue one of the smoothest operating luxury sedans we've ever driven, right up there with Lexus LS 400. Yet at under $25,000, Park Avenue is priced over $14,000 less. And right now, get big end of the model year closeout prices. See your better Buick dealer today.
The stage is now set for confrontation within the Soviet Union. The international stage is also set. We have just a couple of minutes left, and what I would like to do is ask each of our guests, beginning with you, Ambassador Lazaraitis, to give me a short-term projection of how you think things are going to evolve, quite simply over the next 24 hours.
I think that the group which organized the coup will lose at the end. They will try to, of course, to do everything and take under their control communications and as many republics as it is possible. But I don't think that they have any chance of solving political problems over the Soviet Union. I think 2 aspects will be very most important: the resistance of the Russian people and the reaction of the West.
Dr. Sagdayev, your projection for the next 24 hours.
In my best case scenario is these guys would have to retreat just like they have done it in March. Whether they would complete this retreat during next 24 hours, I'm not sure. But eventually, they would have to retreat not only from the party cells of the Communist Party, which is now outlawed in the enterprises by Yeltsin, but I think their fatal mistake now would create complete downfall of the Communist Party in Soviet Union.
And Ambassador Matlock.
In the long run, they cannot succeed. I think the next 24 hours will show us how much opposition there is in the short run and how much trouble they're going to have continuing the process they've started.
Gentlemen, I thank all of you very much. We will, of course, be watching with close attention. When we come back, we'll have one more view, one man's view of the events in the Soviet Union.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered this 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
Charlie, the Johnsons are having something delivered. It's a new air conditioner.
That's nice, dear.
What system's so great they'd buy it this early?
Must be a Lennox.
Like I was saying, I just bought a new heat pump. Got a great deal. And they say my energy bills could really drop.
A Lennox must be a Lennox.
Oh, yes.
Must be a Lennox. If you don't get to sleep, I won't get to sleep.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast so you can get your Z's. Nitol or maximum strength Nitol.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
I soak my dentures and use mouthwash, but sometimes I use toothpaste and mouthwash, but sometimes
Wait, all you need is denture cream. In just 90 seconds, denture cream gets dentures nearly twice as clean. Plus, it has minty mouthwash ingredients to freshen dentures. All you need is denture cream.
If you want to save a little money, here's a novel idea. Spend less. Why this is such a secret, I'll never know.
Everyone misses someone. Everyone needs to hear the news. Everyone leaves home sometime. Everyone needs to cure the blues. Everyone knows a secret. Everyone's got a tale to tell. Hello, hello, everyone. South Central Bell, yeah.
We conclude tonight with another look, a very personal and subjective look, I might add, at the ouster of Mikhail Gorbachev by internationally syndicated political cartoonist Renan Lurie. The perception of political cartoonist Renan Lurie. ABC News will, of course, keep you updated on developments in the Soviet Union throughout the day, and there'll be a full report tomorrow on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been ABC News Nightline. If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript of this or any Nightline broadcast, please send $4 to Nightline Transcripts, 267 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007, or call area code 212-227-READ.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
Hey, it's me, Bob. When me and the boys get a little hungry, guess where we go to tie on the old feed bag? Crystal, of course. Where else can you find that famous Crystal taste for that famous Crystal price? I can see it now. I can see 6 of them with my name on them. Bob, 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 Bob! All right, we're here. Guys? Guys? Hey, don't eat the ones with Bob on them.
Shh. It's closeout time, and your Pontiac dealer can't sleep. He just knows car buyers will take advantage of him. With so many new 91 Pontiacs still in stock, he's had to reduce sticker prices by hundreds, even thousands. He's had to offer bigger factory rebates, like $2,500 cash back on luxurious new full-size Bonnevilles, and $2,000 cash back on sporty new Grand Prix. Go ahead, take advantage of your Pontiac dealer. He won't mind. See the Pontiac people of Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky.
UFOs land in Montana?
Can I have the bag, please? Thank you.
He cooks with one hand and he eats Chex-Mix with the other.
Is there anything to eat?
I can't keep my hand out of this bag. It's so good.
And you thought Chex Mix